All right, Julie, you've convinced me that I do need to weigh out all of my ingredients. I do need to write my formula in percentages, make it easy to scale later. But what do I do whenever I need to change my formula? Sometimes, whenever I'm adding my ingredients, I add a couple extra grams of this or a little too much of that, and it turned out to be a wonderful mistake, and I like it even better. So, how do I figure that out? Hi, I'm Julie Hartsfield with Heartfelt Beauty, and today we're going to talk about updating your formulas. So I've went through the importance of recording your cosmetic formula in percentages, making sure that you use weighted measurements instead of volume measurements, how to convert them over. But what happens if you have a happy mistake? Sometimes I'll be making a formula, and especially if it's something just for myself, and I'm feeling a little lazy and I don't weigh something into like a weigh boat. I just weigh it directly into my container. And then, oopsie, I was supposed to be measuring 30 grams and it ended up being like 35 grams. And then in the end, like, it was an amazing product. Sometimes my mistakes are like, oh my goodness, this is even better. But I can't have a cosmetic formula that adds up to 100% and then say plus 2 grams of this or plus 7 grams of that. So I'm going to show you how to record what you really measure, how to keep track with your formulations, and then how to change it back into a percentages for your new formulation for what you did in reality. It's really simple. All you need to do is stay organized and have a calculator. So let's go learn to formulate. I'm going to show you how I kind of make my working formula, how I keep track of what I'm doing, how I can take my notes as I'm adding my ingredients, and how to update my formula if I decide to add something to it and I need to adjust the percentages later. I'm going to use as an example, in the first formulating and converting tutorial, we used an imaginary lotion formula. We had a volume measured recipe that we converted into a cosmetic formulation using percentages. This is the end result. So now that we have that formula, we know how many grams of each ingredient we have to add. After I have all my amounts ready to go and I start weighing out my recipe, I have another column that's like my checkbox column. This is like reality column, what I actually add, because sometimes when you're measuring, you measure out, this ended up being 481 grams, which in the end, that's not a big deal. Usually 1 gram out of 600 grams total it's not going to make a giant difference, but I like to make sure that I record my actual measurements. That's also why I don't always measure into my main vessel. I like to measure each thing separately and then add it to the vessel, because if you dump too much, you can take it out, but you can't take it if you've already put in all of your water and then you put in too much glycerin. You're starting over with your water. If I change something, I record it. That way I know I've added my water. Then I measure out my glycerin. Say I'm right on the money. I do 20.4 grams. Let's say my water weight, I measured that after I completed my water phase, and it was 1342 grams. So we have that done. Then I start measuring out my oil phase. Whoopsie, I did 38 grams of that. We did our cetyl alcohol, our jojoba oil, our preservative. And then I decided that I want to add fragrance oil. I picked my fragrance. I usually will make a note of which one I used. So my favorite one that I have is called Daydream. So I make a note of that. And then I make a note of how much I added. But let's say in this, I actually added 2.5 grams at the end. That is my record. I would actually keep this record. I usually also put the date on it. Let's say after I make this, I am in love with it. Oh man, this is an amazing formula. I need to change this original imaginary lotion formula, update so that I have new percentages, because this turned out perfect. Let's say I added a little bit of a silicone. I needed just a little bit more slip and glide to it. And so I decided to add cyclomethicone, and I did 12 grams of that. It felt perfect. So now I have to reconfigure my formula to get the percents. It is just like the video where I taught you how to convert it into percentages. We're just kind of reformulating or re-percentaging it, if that's a new word I made up. The first thing that we have to do is come up with a total grams that you actually made. So that's this column, your reality column. You have to add up how many grams you actually created. So that is 481, my reality number. My check means that I can add 20.4 because I added the right amount on that one. Make sure you don't measure your water weight phase. My EWAX was 38, then plus 9.6, plus 48, plus 6, plus the 12 grams of cyclomethicone, plus the 2.5 grams of fragrance oil. Now I have a new total. Instead of the 600 grams that I was going to make, I actually now made 617.5 grams. That's my total. To reconfigure my percents, I would actually make a new column at this point, or rewrite the formulation and call it, version 2 or something like that. But since I'm trying to keep this all together to make it easier to make sense, I'm just going to erase the original percentages. So our total was 617.5. Our formula to convert it into percents is the ingredient, however many grams of your ingredient, divided by the total equals the percentages. So that means my first ingredient was my 481 grams of water. So that means 481 grams of your water divided by your total, 617.5, equals 0.778. So remember from our other tutorial, percentage is the same as a fraction over 100, also as a decimal point with 2 spaces. That means if I had 61% of something, I can also say it is 61/100, or I can say it is, I just move my decimal place over 2, that means it is 0.61. All 3 of those mean the exact same thing. So however you need to write it or read it or put it into your calculator. That means that my equation here, 481 divided by 617.5, if the answer is 0.778, I have to move my decimal point over to the right 2 places, and that makes it 77.8%. That means my new water amount of my formula is 77.8%. And I need to do that with every single ingredient. Even the ones that have a check mark in this box, my percentage is going to change on every single one of these because my total has changed. Glycerin, we had 20.4 grams. We will divide it by our total, and that is 0.033. Move that decimal point over 2 places, and that means that is 3.3%. So go through and do that for every ingredient and come up with your new percentages. Now add up all of your percentages to make sure that they total up to 100%. This formulation adds up to 99.6%, so I need to add 0.4%. Usually the addition will be to the water amount, but that can change with each formulation. In this formula, my preservative needs to be 1%, so I adjust that first, and then that brings my total to 99.7. I'm going to make my cyclomethicone an even 2%, which leaves me with 0.2%, just enough to make my water amount an even 78%. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. Like, comment, subscribe, share beauty, spread love. I'll see you soon.